If you want to learn how to catch lobsters like this,
Oh!
it's a party. Woo! Let's go.
Or like this.
That's how you start the day. You're gonna want to be sure to watch this video. Today, we're gonna teach you how to be a successful lobster diver in less than 10 minutes.
And we're gonna run you through all the tools that we use to catch boatloads of lobster and give you some tips and tricks on how to use them.
The 2024-2025 Florida lobster season has been one for the books this year. And there's still 2 whole months left in the season. So there's plenty of time to get out there.
And we wanted to give you all the tools necessary to close out the season with some successful dives.
We got 3 primary methods that we use here in Florida to catch spiny lobsters. Now, these methods might not work everywhere else in the world for different types of lobsters, but we're gonna show you what we do down here. Let's get to it. The first and most widely used method, the net and tickle stick.
You can get these tickle sticks just about anywhere. They're aluminum, plastic, come in all different shapes and sizes, but the premise is just be able to get behind that lobster in the rock and be able to walk him out gently so you can get him out in the open area and come in with this bad boy and scoop right behind him, catch him in the net. Cut to the video where we show you these things in live action.
So we're gonna walk through a few of these dives and highlight how we utilize each tool to catch lobsters. Now we don't have as much with the net and tickle stick because we don't use it quite as often as some of the other methods, but it is a great tool to use and definitely our recommendation for kids or beginners just getting into lobster diving. So when using the net and tickle stick, you want to have the net in one hand and the tickle stick in your dominant hand. You want to get the tickle stick behind the lobster so that you can get it to walk forward and get the net behind it. Because lobsters only swim backwards, so your best chance is getting that net behind the lobster and pushing it in. So this is another angle that we take, and you can use a snare as a tickle stick. Like Steven said, it doesn't have to be the metal one shown. You can use anything. You just want to have some kind of method to get behind the lobster to walk him out of the hole so that you can get your net behind him and drop the net down on top of him so that he has nowhere else to go. And once you get him in the net, you want to make sure that you grab that lobster right away so that he cannot escape out the other end. And sometimes, if you get lucky, you can use the net to catch multiple lobsters at one time. As you can see here, Mike got 3 in 1 scoop. Just make sure you grab those lobsters so they can't escape.
The second method, and by far our favorite to use, is the snare.
A simple but very effective tool. You have a metal cable loop on the end and you have a handle right here. You pull the handle to cinch down the cable loop around the tail of the lobster. We got a lot of clips of us using these things. Let's check it out. We really love this clip right here. It almost does the season justice of how good it has been and how many lobsters have been around. How many can you count in this one little frame? So 9 times out of 10, when a lobster is under a rock, we like to start out with the snare all the way pulled tight so that there is no loop on the end and we're using it as a tickle stick. So we get that snare behind the lobster, walk it out into the open space, open the loop of the snare, get it around the tail to about the midpoint and cinch down. This is another one of our favorite clips from the season. This right here was a few weeks after a hurricane and it had the lobsters walking. Insane phenomena, but we love getting out there. The hardest part here when you come across a bunch like this is picking out the biggest one and cleanly snare it without spooking the other lobsters deep into a rock.
Yeah, big old pod.
And no matter which method you choose to use, the end goal is always going to be the same. You need to make sure that you secure that lobster as fast as you can. Even with these snares, you want to get your hand on the lobster as soon as you cinch tight. And if you don't, those lobsters are strong enough to wiggle right out of that snare, and then you'll have to go down and catch it again, just like that. So another tip while tickling out lobsters with the snare or tickle stick is to be gentle. And what I mean by gentle is to be slow with your movements and touch the lobster the least amount as possible. It'll help keep the lobster off of high alert and keep him from shooting back further into the hole to make the catch harder. And the best part about the snare is that you can secure lobsters where a net would never fit, like under this rock ledge. You don't even have to walk them out of their hole, so they'll never see you coming, just like all the lobsters in this snare montage. And last but not least, the most simple and primitive method, bare hands.
The old claw machine. But if you're gonna go with your bare hands, you gotta have the proper equipment. You want a nice set of thick diving gloves here. And you can see these things have been put to work. Grabbed a couple lobsters out of a couple rocks with these guys. These Florida spiny lobsters are no joke. They've got spines and pricklies all over them, and they will leave you with a lot of marks if you don't have gloves. But be warned, if you're gonna stick your hand in a rock, you run the risk if you run into a teethy critter, so use at your own risk.
What's a teethy critter, Steve?
Could be an eel, could be a shark, could be a sea urchin. It gets a little scary digging your hand in a hole sometimes, but it's worth it if you pull out a big lobster.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
That's right. I think we got a couple videos of me snagging some lobsters with these hands.
So for some, these lobsters may be intimidating to grab with your hand, but sometimes that's the only option. The best way to go in for a bare hand catch is to find the antennas with your hand and slowly walk your hand towards the base of the knuckle. Once you get the knuckle, you can pull as hard as you want because the knuckle will never break off, but the ends of the antenna will, so don't pull from those. A tip to finding lobsters is finding the right bottom. And big brain corals like this hold lobster 90% of the time. You just need a flashlight to look up in there. Oh, and your bare hand, because most of the time you will never be able to fit a snare or a net into there. But you can fit your hand. Just watch out for eels. Other areas that lobsters tend to like are smaller ledges like this, where it's a tight fit for the lobster to get into, but they feel a lot safer. But that can make for a pain to get a snare in or a net. So if you're working a lobster for a while and you realize that it's a shallow ledge and the lobster has nowhere to go, don't be afraid to reach your hand in there. But be careful, because if there is a back exit and you don't have it covered, that lobster is going to find it and you're never going to catch it. And if you run into a scenario like this, be careful pulling on that tail, because it's very easy to rip it right out of the head. So gently pull on the tail to where you can get that second hand on the head, then you can exert all the force you want. Anytime you see orange sponge like this on top of the rocks, you know that you're in lobster territory. Just be careful when you're barehanding these lobsters that you make sure that you always have enough breath before reaching your hand in that hole. Oftentimes you're getting your arm and body into weird positions, so it's not uncommon to get stuck for a few extra seconds. So make sure you have that extra bit of time in your breath hold. So there you have it, folks. We hope that this video helps you out. Like we said, you got 2 months left in the season and there's a lot of lobsters around. Try out these tips and tools. Let us know what's your favorite, and let us know if we missed any helpful tricks. You know, we like to learn more every day, just like all of you.
Get out there and crush it. We want to see your lobsters.